The night was still, but my heart was restless. Something in the air felt off, like the calm before a storm. I had just finished washing the dishes when I heard voices upstairs, faint at first, but enough to pull me toward the staircase. My knees ached with every step, but curiosity, or maybe fear, kept me moving. The clock on the wall struck 10. My son, Michael, and his wife, Vanessa, were supposed to be asleep by now, but their voices were sharp, low, and full of secrets. I crept closer, each creak of the wooden floor making my heart race faster. Then, through the half-closed door of Michael's room, I heard the words that froze my blood. "Once she's gone, the house is ours," Michael said. There was a pause. Vanessa's voice followed, dripping with greed. "You mean once she dies?" "That could take years, Michael. We can't keep waiting like this." The world went silent around me. My breath caught in my throat. My own son, the boy I raised, the boy I sacrificed my dreams for, was talking about my death like it was a business plan. I gripped the doorframe, feeling the weight of every year I had lived pressing down on me. Michael sighed. "She's old, Vanessa. It won't be long, and when it happens, we'll sell this house, move to the city, start fresh." Vanessa laughed softly, a cold, hollow sound that made my stomach turn. "And what about the will? What if she leaves it to that charity she loves so much?" Michael's voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't worry. She trusts me. I've already been helping her with the paperwork. Once she signs the version I prepared, everything will go through me." The room spun. My son, the one I taught to write his name, to tie his shoes, to say thank you, had forged a plan against me. My vision blurred. I wanted to burst in, scream, demand answers, but I didn't. I stepped back quietly, trembling, clutching my chest as I tried to breathe. Downstairs, I collapsed into the armchair, my fingers trembling as I replayed their words. "Once she's gone. Gone. Not dead. Gone." But they meant the same thing. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I remembered the nights I stayed awake sewing his clothes, the days I skipped meals so he could eat, the time I sold my wedding necklace to help him start his business, and this was my reward. Betrayal from my own flesh and blood. The grandfather clock ticked loudly, echoing in the empty room. Each tick felt like a countdown to something inevitable. I thought about Robert, my late husband. If he were here, he would have protected me. He always said, "Maggie, people change when money's involved. Keep your head clear and your papers clearer." That memory sparked something in me. I wiped my tears. The sadness hardened into resolve. If my son could plan behind my back, then he had forgotten who raised him. He didn't know that long before he started plotting, I had already taken steps to protect everything. I stood up, walked to my bedroom, and opened the old wooden drawer. Beneath the photo albums and old letters lay a sealed envelope, the one I'd given to my lawyer, Eleanor, a year ago. The updated will. It was the night Robert's words came true. I had felt a strange intuition back then, something telling me to make a change. So I did, and tonight I finally understood why. My hands steadied as I looked at the envelope. Michael thought I was a fragile old woman, living her last quiet days, but he had no idea. No idea that I had already changed everything. No idea that his greed would destroy him, not me. The next morning, I made breakfast as if nothing had happened. Michael greeted me with his usual fake warmth, a kiss on the cheek. Vanessa complimented my pancakes, pretending to be sweet. Inside, I was burning, but on the outside, I smiled. "You two have plans today?" I asked, stirring the coffee. "Just running some errands," Michael replied casually. "You don't worry about a thing, Mum. I'll handle all the documents for the insurance next week." I nodded. That's thoughtful of you, dear, I said, my voice calm, but I think I'll handle a few things myself. Vanessa looked up sharply, but I didn't meet her gaze. When they left, I locked the door, took out my phone, and called Eleanor. My voice trembled, but it was steady enough for what needed to be said. Eleanor, it's Margaret. I think it's time we met. There's something I need to finalize. Quietly. Her voice on the other end was calm, reassuring. Of course, Margaret. Come by this afternoon. We'll make sure everything stays protected. That afternoon, as I drove to the lawyer's office, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Wrinkles lined my face, and grief had dulled my eyes. But there was something new there too. Strength. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a woman ready to fight for her dignity. As I signed the new set of confidential documents, Eleanor looked at me with admiration. You're stronger than most people I know, Margaret, she said softly. I smiled faintly. I just learned the hard way that love without limits can become a weapon in the wrong hands. When I returned home, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the living room. I sat in my husband's old chair and looked around. The walls, the photos, the memories, everything I had built with love was now a battleground of betrayal. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. Because now, the trap they had set for me was waiting. For them. And they had no idea what was coming. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, soft and golden. It painted the room in a peace that no longer existed inside me. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the kitchen. But even that comforting scent couldn't chase away the weight in my chest. For years, I had believed my home was a haven, warm, loving, and built on sacrifice. Now, it felt like a stage where lies performed themselves in daylight. Michael and Vanessa came down for breakfast, laughing at something on their phones. They looked so normal, so ordinary. But behind that laughter, I could hear the whispers from last night echoing in my mind. Once she's gone, the house is ours. I forced a smile. Morning, you two, I said, sliding pancakes onto their plates. Morning, Mum, Michael replied, not meeting my eyes. Vanessa, ever the actress, chirped. Smells wonderful, Mrs. Miller. She never called me Mom. That word had always caught in her throat like a thorn. I sat down opposite them, watching as they ate. Every bite felt like a betrayal. I wondered, when had my son changed? Was it after he married her? Or had the seeds of greed already been there, waiting for someone like Vanessa to water them? Robert and I had built this house 40 years ago. Back then, it was small and modest, but filled with dreams. He worked as a carpenter, and I ran a little flower shop on Main Street. We didn't have much, but what we did have, we earned with blistered hands and sleepless nights. Michael was our only son. Bright, ambitious, and charming even as a boy. We spoiled him, I'll admit it. We wanted him to have more than we did. To go to college, to build a life without struggle. When Robert died suddenly of a heart attack, Michael was 27. I thought he'd step up, be the man of the family. Instead, he withdrew. He sold Robert's old truck, took the insurance money, and started investing in risky ventures. I didn't question him then. I thought it was his way of coping with grief. But grief, I learned, doesn't always soften people. Sometimes it hardens them. It was 2 years later that he met Vanessa, beautiful, sharp, and cold. She worked in real estate, always talking about property values, market trends, and potential profits. The first time she visited, she looked around my home and said, "This place could sell for a fortune if renovated." It wasn't admiration, it was calculation. The manipulation begins. When they married, things changed quickly. They convinced me to move into the guest room downstairs for comfort. They started managing the bills, the maintenance, the repairs. At first, I was grateful. My knees were bad, my eyesight fading. But slowly, I noticed the small things. My mail being opened before I got to it, bank calls going unanswered, my voice being ignored in family discussions. Then one day, I found my name missing from a bank account I'd opened with Robert decades ago. Michael brushed it off. "It's just easier for tax purposes, Mum." "Don't worry about it," I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him, because admitting my own son could betray me felt unbearable. Helen, the neighbor who saw too much. Across the street lived Helen Parker, my best friend and confidant, a widow like me, sharp as ever despite her age. She was the kind of woman who noticed everything and forgot nothing. She came over that morning for tea, as she often did. Her bright red cardigan and keen eyes were a welcome comfort. "You look pale, Maggie," she said, setting her teacup down. "Something wrong?" I hesitated. Could I tell her what I'd overheard? Would she even believe me? I heard something last night. Michael and Vanessa. Helen didn't blink. "Let me guess. Money trouble?" "Worse," I whispered. "They want me. Gone." Her face hardened instantly. "Gone?" He said, "Once she's gone, the house is ours." For a moment, Helen said nothing. Then she reached across the table, taking my trembling hand. "Oh, Maggie, I always knew that woman was poison. But Michael? Your own boy?" I nodded, tears threatening to spill. "I've already spoken to Eleanor," I said softly. "My will's been changed for a year now. Everything goes to Clare House Foundation, the charity Robert and I supported. They'll never see a penny." Helen's lips curved into a grim smile. "Good. Let them choke on their own greed." But her tone turned serious. "Still, you have to be careful. People like Vanessa don't give up easily. She's clever and desperate." Her warning lingered in my mind long after she left. The growing distance days passed. Michael became more attentive than usual, too attentive. He asked about my medication, my will, my insurance. He cooked dinner once or twice, something he'd never done before. "Just trying to help out, Mom," he said one night, smiling too widely. I watched him stir the soup, the metal spoon clinking softly against the pot. There was something unsettling in the way he moved, controlled, cautious, as if he were measuring not the soup, but his next move. Vanessa hovered near the doorway, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to listen. When I excused myself to rest, I noticed their whispering again, just like before. I couldn't hear everything, but one phrase reached me clearly. "We need to hurry before she changes anything." My blood ran cold. Before she changes anything, did they suspect I already had the hidden truth? That night, I sat in my room, staring at the portrait of Robert hanging above the dresser. "You were right, love," I murmured. "People change when money's involved." I opened the drawer again, pulled out a small black notebook. Inside it were copies, photocopies of the new will, notes, and Eleanor's contact details. I'd made multiple copies, storing them in different places. One in the attic, one in the safe deposit box, one mailed to the charity director. If Michael and Vanessa ever tried to tamper with anything, there would be records everywhere. But still, I felt uneasy. My instincts screamed that something bigger was coming. The following weekend, Michael's tone shifted. He grew impatient, irritable. "Mum, you've been talking to Eleanor a lot lately. Is there something going on?" My heart skipped. I forced a small chuckle. "Just updating a few old papers, dear. You know, boring stuff." He smiled, but his eyes didn't. "Well, you can trust me to handle it. I've been managing your documents anyway." "Oh, I know," I said lightly. But some things are better handled by the professionals. He didn't respond. He just nodded slowly, eyes narrowing, calculating. That night, when I went to bed, I locked my door. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of the son I had raised, the suspicious phone call. A few days later, I overheard Vanessa on the phone. Her voice was low, urgent. "I don't care how much it costs. Just make sure it looks official. The signature has to match perfectly." She paused. "Yes, Margaret Miller, and don't contact this number again." My pulse pounded in my ears. What was she forging? My will? My bank authorization? The next day, I went to Eleanor's office again. She frowned as I told her everything. "Margaret, if they're attempting forgery, we'll have to get ahead of them. I can contact the authorities quietly, but we'll need evidence." I nodded. "Then let's get evidence." Setting the trap. Eleanor helped me install small security cameras around the living room and study. Tiny, discreet, almost invisible. One faced my desk where I kept my documents. That evening, I left a decoy will inside an unlocked drawer, exactly where I knew Vanessa liked to snoop when she thought I was asleep. Then, I waited. I pretended to nap on the couch, but every sound made my skin prickle. Hours passed before I heard the faint creak of the study door. Through the narrow crack of the hall, I saw her, Vanessa, barefoot, holding her phone flashlight, rifling through my drawer. She found the envelope and smiled wickedly. "Perfect," she whispered to herself, slipping it into her purse. And that's when Michael's voice joined hers. "Did you get it?" "Yes, we'll swap it tonight." My heart thundered, but I stayed still. I couldn't move. I couldn't risk it. When they left the room, I exhaled shakily and whispered, "Got you." The camera light blinked softly from its hidden spot, recording everything. The cliffhanger. The next morning, I visited Eleanor again. "It's done," I told her, showing the footage. She watched silently, jaw tightening. "This is serious, Margaret. What they're doing is criminal. We'll take this to the authorities, but carefully. We can't alert them yet. Why not?" "Because," she said grimly, "we need them to finish what they've started. That way, there's no denying their intent." I stared at her, my heart pounding. "You mean, let them think they've won?" Eleanor nodded. "Exactly. We let them walk into their own trap." That night, as I sat by the window watching the streetlights flicker, I thought about what was coming. My own son, my blood, my heart. He had chosen greed over love, and now he was walking straight into the storm he had created. The house that once sheltered his childhood laughter would soon become the stage of his downfall. He didn't know it yet, but by the time this was over, everything he loved, his pride, his wealth, his reputation, would belong to the truth I had buried deep. The next morning, the sky was bruised with storm clouds, thick, grey and heavy. It felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. I stood in front of the mirror, my frail fingers brushing through silver strands of hair. My eyes, once gentle, soft, now carried a storm of their own. Last night, I heard my son, my own flesh and blood, plot my end. But today would not be mine. It would be theirs. I called the family together. "Everyone," I said, voice trembling but steady, "I have an announcement to make. It's important, and it concerns this house." In the living room, my son Michael, his wife Tara, and my late husband's brother Frank sat around the old oak table. Their faces looked confused, nervous even. The same table where we'd once celebrated birthdays and Christmas dinners now felt like a battlefield. Tara crossed her arms. "Mother, is this really necessary? We have things to do." I looked at her, her perfect smile, her fake concern. It all burned my heart. Yes, dear, it's very necessary. You'll want to hear this. The room fell silent. I took a deep breath and began. I've lived in this house for 40 years. Your father and I built it from the ground up. With love, with sacrifice. Every brick here has a story. But I also know how quickly love turns to greed when money enters the picture. Michael's eyes darted away. Mum, what are you talking about? I stepped closer. I heard you, Michael. Last night, I heard everything. The room froze. Tara's smirk vanished. Frank shifted uncomfortably. Michael stammered. You're mistaken, Mum. You probably misheard. Once she's gone, the house is ours. That's what you said. His face went pale. Tara's hand tightened around his. For a long second, no one breathed. Then Tara broke the silence. Fine, she spat. You were supposed to be resting, not eavesdropping on conversations that weren't your concern. My voice sharpened like glass. My death isn't my concern. Her jaw clenched. You're twisting our words. No, I said softly. I'm just remembering them. Michael tried to speak, but I raised a trembling hand. Let me finish. You see, I've been watching both of you for a long time. The missing jewelry, the checks with forged signatures, the way you kept telling me I was forgetful, confused, old. Tara's lips curled into a fake smile. Are you accusing us of stealing? I smiled faintly. No, dear. I'm not accusing you. I'm proving it. From my purse, I pulled out a small black device. My old phone. I pressed play. Michael's voice echoed through the room. Once she's gone, we sell this house. I already talked to the agent. $500,000, easy. Then Tara's laughter followed. Good. She's useless anyway, just a burden. The air shattered. Michael jumped up. How did you? I may be old, son, I said, but I'm not blind, nor am I stupid. I recorded it all, every single word. Tara's face turned red. You can't use that. It's illegal. Maybe, I said, but it's enough to open a few eyes. Then I turned toward the doorway, because standing there, arms crossed, face unreadable, was Detective Collins. Michael's voice trembled. Mum, what have you done? I didn't answer. The detective stepped forward. Mom, you were right to call us. We've reviewed the footage and the financial statements you provided. Mr. and Mrs. Turner, you're both under investigation for fraud, elder abuse, and attempted financial exploitation. Tara screamed. No, you can't do this. The officers moved in. Michael's eyes filled with panic. Mom, please, don't do this. I'm your son. I looked at him. The same boy I once rocked to sleep, now begging for mercy. My heart ached, but I stood firm. You stopped being my son, I whispered, the moment you wished for my death. As the officers led them out, the storm outside finally broke, rain pounding against the windows, thunder rolling like judgment itself. Frank stayed behind, silent, watching me with a mix of awe and sorrow. You planned all this? He finally asked. I nodded slowly. I changed my will months ago. The house, the savings, everything is now going to the Children's Cancer Foundation. No one in this family will profit from my death. Frank's eyes widened. You gave it all away? I smiled sadly. Better to give it to those who'll cherish life than to those who wish it away. That night, I sat alone in the quiet house. The storm had passed, but its echo remained, soft, distant, cleansing. I looked around, my heart heavy but free. The ghosts of betrayal lingered, yes, but so did peace, because in the end, justice wasn't about revenge, it was about truth, and the truth always finds its way home. The courtroom was packed, rows upon rows of faces, neighbors, distant relatives, old friends, sat in suffocating silence. Even the air seemed to tremble under the weight of truth that was about to be unleashed. I sat quietly at the witness stand, my hands folded neatly in my lap. My heart pounded, but my face remained calm. I wasn't the weak, fragile old woman they thought I was anymore. Today, the world would finally see who I really was. Across the room, Michael and Tara sat with their lawyers. They looked pale, nervous, stripped of all arrogance. The charm they once used to deceive everyone was gone, replaced by fear. The judge cleared his throat. "Mrs. Turner," he said, "you may proceed with your final statement." I nodded. My voice shook for only a moment before finding its strength. "Your Honor, these two people sitting there," I pointed toward Michael and Tara, "are not strangers. They are my family, my son and daughter-in-law. I raised that boy with my own hands. I gave him everything: education, a home, love, and this. This is how he repaid me." The crowd murmured. Tara whispered harshly to Michael, but I continued. "I overheard them planning to take everything I owned once I was gone. They forged my checks, sold my jewelry, and told neighbors that I was losing my mind so that no one would believe me if I spoke the truth." Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge motioned for silence, but whispers still rippled through the hall. My lawyer stepped forward, pressing a button on the laptop connected to the screen. A familiar voice echoed from the speakers, Michael's. "Once she's gone, the house is ours." Then Tara's cruel laughter followed. "Good. She's a burden anyway." The crowd erupted in disbelief. Some covered their mouths, others just stared. Michael's face drained of color. Tara looked like she wanted to disappear. "These recordings," my lawyer said, "along with the financial evidence, prove their intent to defraud and exploit Mrs. Turner, their own mother." The judge turned to Michael. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Michael's voice cracked. It was just a joke. We didn't mean it that way." Tara grabbed his arm. "Stop talking." But the damage was already done. I looked at them both. "A joke?" I whispered. "Is that what betrayal is called now?" Michael lowered his head. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, the evidence also shows that Mr. Turner and Mrs. Turner attempted to transfer property ownership using forged signatures. We request that the house and all assets be permanently removed from their control." The judge nodded gravely. "Request granted." A loud bang of the gavel echoed through the room. Gasps, silence, then murmurs of approval. The house, the savings, every penny they wanted. It was gone. Then came the second shock. The judge continued reading the will aloud. "According to the new legally notarized document, the entire Turner estate, including the family house and assets, is hereby donated to the Children's Cancer Foundation." Michael's eyes went wide. "What?" Tara screamed. "She can't do that. That's our inheritance." I smiled faintly. "It was never yours." The judge struck his gavel again. "Order. Mr. and Mrs. Turner, your greed and deceit have led to your downfall. You stand guilty of financial exploitation and elder abuse. You will serve a term of 3 years, with restitution payments to the charity for the funds you stole." The courtroom gasped again. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Tara broke down crying, while Michael stared at me with a mix of rage and despair. "Mom, please," he cried, "don't let them take me away. I'm your son." I stood, tears glistening in my eyes. "You were my son when you protected me. You became my enemy when you wished me dead." As the officers led them away, the crowd parted silently. People I'd known for years, neighbors, old church friends, came forward, some whispering, "You were brave, Helen, so brave." But I didn't feel brave. I felt hollow. The people I'd loved most were gone, not because of death, but because of their choices. Still, justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, the charity representatives waited for me. A little girl, bald from treatment, held a handmade card and smiled shyly. "Thank you, Mrs. Turner," she said softly. Her tiny voice broke something inside me. I knelt, hugging her. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "you're the reason I did all this." For the first time in years, I felt peace. That night, back home, I sat in my empty living room. The silence was no longer painful, it was freeing. The rain tapped gently on the windows, like soft applause from heaven itself. I picked up the framed photo of Michael as a child, his smile innocent, his eyes full of dreams. "I hope one day," I whispered, "you'll remember who you were, before greed took you away from me." The clock ticked quietly in the background. Everything was done. Justice had spoken. And yet, deep in my heart, one question lingered. Would I forgive him if he truly came back? It's been almost 4 years since that day in court. 4 years since I watched my own son being led away in handcuffs. 4 years since I finally found the courage to stop begging for love and start living for peace. The house feels different now. Not empty, not lonely, just still. The kind of stillness that doesn't hurt anymore. I've repainted the walls, planted new roses, and filled the silence with soft piano music in the evenings. Every corner that once echoed with tension now carries a quiet kind of freedom. I no longer wake up fearing what tomorrow might bring. I've learned that peace doesn't come from the people who stay. It comes from the strength to let go of those who shouldn't. After the trial, I didn't see Michael or Tara for a long time. They served their time quietly, and I tried to move on just as quietly. But healing is never a straight road. Some nights, I'd sit by the window, watching the moonlight spill across the garden, and my heart would ache for the boy who used to run to me with scraped knees and a wide grin. I'd whisper his name to the wind, wondering if somewhere he still remembered the mother who tucked him into bed every night. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It only lightens the weight of carrying it. One spring morning, 3 years after the verdict, I received a letter. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. It was from Michael. "Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. But prison gave me time to see what I'd become. A man who traded love for greed. Every night, I dream about you. I dream that I'm sitting beside you in the garden again, and you're humming that old tune you loved. I don't want your money. I don't want the house. I just want you to know. I'm sorry, the paper was stained with what looked like tears. Maybe his, maybe mine. I didn't reply immediately. What could I say? Words couldn't rebuild what years of betrayal had destroyed. But a few months later, I found myself walking toward the small-town community center where I volunteered. And there he was, standing near the gates, holding a box of books, thinner, older, humbler. He looked up and froze. "Mom," he whispered. For a moment, all the anger, the years, the pain, it all dissolved into one fragile heartbeat. I didn't say anything. I just stepped closer, placed a hand on his cheek, and said quietly, "You're home, Michael." From that day on, our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real. He started helping at the community center, teaching kids from broken homes. I watched him change, not for wealth, not for pride, but for redemption. And every time I saw him kneel to help a child tie their shoelaces or donate his small earnings to the charity, I saw glimpses of the boy I once knew. People often asked why I let him back into my life. I told them, because forgiveness isn't approval, it's freedom. I forgave him not to erase what he did, but to free myself from reliving it. Now, I spend most of my days writing. I've started a small memoir group for elderly women. Many of them have stories like mine, stories of betrayal, abandonment, and heartbreak, but also stories of survival, faith, and rebirth. We sit in a circle, sharing tea and tears, and I remind them gently, we don't age when we grow old. We age when we stop healing. A few weeks ago, the charity built a new children's wing at the hospital, the Turner Hope Center. The plaque reads, "Donated in memory of love, not loss." Standing there, with Michael by my side and the laughter of children filling the air, I realized something profound. The legacy of love I leave behind matters far more than the pain that once tried to destroy me. A letter to those watching. This if you're watching this story, wondering whether to forgive, to fight, or to walk away, listen carefully. You don't have to let toxic people back in, but you also don't have to carry the poison they left behind. Let your heart be light, even if your memories are heavy, because in the end, the truest inheritance isn't land, or wealth, or even justice. It's peace. And peace only comes when you stop waiting for others to change and start changing what you hold inside. As the sun sets each evening, I sit on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the sky fade into gold. The wind smells of lilacs and rain, and I whisper a quiet prayer for everyone I've lost and everyone I've forgiven. Life didn't turn out the way I planned, but maybe it turned out exactly the way it was meant to. Final life lesson. Greed may steal your home, lies may break your family, but only love and truth can rebuild your soul.